Joining us now to review some of the stories of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efene. Great Malabite.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, powerful Ayo Myro Essay.
Good morning, sir.
It has implications.
Of course, she knows. Do we need to say that again?
Don't worry, I'll come back to that story. I'll come back because it's a story on its own.
Mr. Finney, you're looking very takeaway, like they say in local parlance.
Now we start the review with this day, Nigeria's newspaper of record. We start with, there are two Sanusi stories here. I start with the first. Sanusi is Nigeria's loss. Oshibajo was not elected president. Yes, Lamido Sanusi, the former emir of Kano, who is the leader of the Caliph of the Tijaniya Islamic movement in Nigeria. Yes, making that statement is Nigeria's loss. Oshibajo was not elected president. We were speaking at the launch of the book written in honor of Oshibajo. Oshibajo's strides of the title of the book, Oshibajo's Strides, defining moments of an innovative leader. Yes, at least on this program, on a number of occasions, I called for Oshibajo to run for the presidency. When some were saying to do so will amount to biting the finger that fed him, I said, what bloody finger? He should run because I believe he was competent, he is competent, and Sanusi Lamido echoing the same sentiment that was Nigeria's loss. Oshibajo did not emerge as Nigeria's next president. Of course, he lost at the primaries, the convention of the APC, where Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu was picked as the candidate. Now, the other story that concerns him, the lead story, Ganduje to Kwankwaso. God would not allow anybody destroy our new Kano Emirates. Yes, Abdullahi Ganduje, the outgoing governor of Kano State. Of course, it was a riposte to the statement made by Dr. Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, the leader of the NNPP, where he said that, of course, in a trending video, that the incoming administration will review the removal of Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi as Emir of Kano, and, of course, the creation of 4 new emirates from the ones, the big Kano Emirates. And, of course, recall that Abdullahi Ganduje, who was deputy governor to Rabi Musa Kwankwaso when Lamido Sanusi Lamido was installed as Emir of Kano, of course, had cause to depose the Emir of Kano, then Lamido Sanusi Lamido, and eventually created 4 new emirates, Bichi, Karaye, Rano, and Gaya, and of course installed emirs in these 4 emirates. Now, he is saying that those emirates have come to stay and that for the unity, development of these areas, God will not allow anybody destroy our new Kano Emirates. But he will be leaving as governor on May 29, and a new man will take over as the governor. Abba Kabir Yusuf is the governor-elect. But my worry is that I hope Dr. Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso will allow the governor to be, or he wants to do a 3rd term by proxy. But the governor has to be his own man, because for Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso to be speaking for the governor even before he takes office as to what they will do, well, perhaps that's the problem when you have only one state. You won as a political party and as the leader of the party, yes, to interfere and be the one to call the shots. Yes, we'll give Philip to those who believe that the governor-elect, Abba Kabiru Yusuf, is just a proxy for Rabi Musa Kwankwaso. But we hope there will be peace in Kano after that, after a new governor is installed, and the new governor will be allowed to be his own man. Now, other stories. Of course, yes, the most powerful women in journalism. Ayo Mairo Ese were represented there. And of course, 2 women from this day Nigeria's newspaper of record also made that list. Chimele Ezeobi, the featured editor of this day, as well as Kone Nwabogo, the editor of Style magazine, this is Style magazine, also members of that slim club of powerful women in Nigerian journalism. So I say congratulations, Ayo, Chimele, and of course Kone. Congratulations to these women in the group, the These Day Arise Media Group, who are making the strides. That's how we roll.
That's how we roll.
Yeah, so congratulations. There are implications. I repeat. Now, but still talking about women and This Day. Yes, the This Day lawyer, the editor of This Day lawyer, Nikepo Braithwaite, is also canvassing for a place of women in the next government. And in that piece, if we put up her piece there, a case for women in Tinubu's government. Yes, so Nikepo Braithwaite making a case. Yes, the women did not fare too well in the polls, in the general elections, but there is an opportunity to make some amends, and that is where Nikepo Braithwaite is calling on Bola Ahmed Tinubu to pick women and give them prominent positions because they are competent, capable, and many of these women, they have integrity. We need them in the mix for good governance. Now, the Guardian newspaper, workers demand better pay amid subsidy debt concerns. Yes, yesterday was Labor Day and the celebration across the world. Of course, in Nigeria, labor converged at the Eagle Square yesterday, where they made a number of demands and, of course, expressed their concerns, and the newspapers are reporting the story. Of course, the Punch newspaper also reporting Tinubu promises tough decisions. NLC demands new retirement age. Labor recommends 65 years retirement age, 40-year length of service. President-elect 6 understanding says hard decisions coming soon. Now, I don't understand it. Ruben, you will help me here. 65 years, you want to still be in government, 40 years service. Is it not better for people to exit so that young, fresh blood with new ideas can come into the service? Well, but that is Labour's demand. I'm sure in the days ahead, that demand will be put under the microscope, as it were. Now, the photograph on front page of the Punch newspaper, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, SAN, this is for your attention. What you are seeing there, that is the long bridge on the Lagos-Ibadan expressway, which is under construction. Look at that photograph. This is flash flood water from less than 2 hours rainfall, and it got to the brim. It caused another huge hold up on that axis. So whatever Julius Berger has done that had clogged the exit for water on that bridge, Mr. Fashola has to ensure that they correct this before he leaves office, because this, imagine when the other flood that goes through under the water come with rainfall like this, that place will be impassable. So attention of Mr. Babatunde Fashola being drawn to this, to what looked like a defect in the work Julius Berger has done on the long bridge. Now, if we look at the Vanguard newspaper, of course, May Day, hot last-minute looting. Labour urges Buhari, indicts outgoing governors, ministers, others, insist on resisting further fuel price hike via subsidy removal. Tinubu promised salary increase. Yes, that is put in bold. I'm sure all workers will underline that and expect that salary increase after Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who have been sworn in as the president of Nigeria, says, I'll give you a living wage. NBA asks Tinubu others to protect entrepreneurs, grow middle class. Nigerian Workers deserve better treatment. Can President resist anti-democratic forces? PDP tells workers will continue struggle to reclaim stolen mandates. The Labour Party assures workers. Now, the Nation newspaper also reporting Labour pay rise coming for health workers, lecturers, others. Funding captured in this year's budget, says federal government. President-elect promises living wage. Now, the Daily Trust newspaper, also the same story. I'll give you living wage. Tinubu promises workers respect their rights. Buhari tells president-elect. Labour demands better deals, can have on decent working conditions, resist anti-democratic forces. PDP tells workers. Now, the Daily Sun newspaper, Sudan, Egypt opens border for fleeing Nigerian students. Buhari engages President Sisi. Well, it's like what should have been the very first step has been done at last, because it was an emergency situation to just say some millions have been 1.2 million approved for transportation, and without firming up other arrangements. Of course, those Nigerians have been suffering, but now the border is open. Perhaps it was a no-brainer that immediately the president of Nigeria should have engaged the president of Egypt, so that we don't have the kind of situation we had where Nigerians were stranded at the Egyptian border after suffering inside Sudan. Now, the other story on the front page of Daily Trust, 10th National Assembly, Senate leadership frustrate plans to alter own rules as lawmakers keep vigil. Now, the Nigerian Tribune newspaper also reporting this story is saying that, yes, above the masthead, Nigerian Tribune, El-Rufai, Abbas split Northwest governors over lobby for positions. Kaduna Gladiators, I Speaker's seat, SGF. Zone risk losing out of top four for the first time since 1999. Of course, the Northwest staking its claim. And of course, the argument they're pushing is that they contributed so much to the Bola Ahmed Tinubu victory, and as such should be compensated. But like I think it was Sam Amadi who pointed out last night, the news night, that look, the victory of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is an executive matter which should end there. What will happen on June 13 when the National Assembly will convene, the 10th National Assembly, is a legislative arm of government matter. And also the permutations should not be talking about who contributed what to the victory of the president-elect. But again, guys are pushing for their position. Yesterday, of course, former governor Godswill Akpabio visited President Muhammadu Buhari to make his case to be the next president of the Nigerian Senate. Yes, if we look at the New Telegraph newspaper, of course, Sudan crisis, bus conveying stranded Nigerians catches fire. Egypt has opened border for Nigerian students fleeing Sudan. Of course, that fire incident, the fire was put off, and the students in that bus were distributed in other buses, and of course, there was no fatality or injury in that incident. Ruben, Rufai, and the powerful Ayo. Over to you.
I mean, let's go back and revisit the Sudan issue. While we revisit it, we pray that the students come back home safe. And I'm happy you mentioned that fire incident, but we also got another information that they were able to continue their journey to Port Sudan, which is a good one. Like I said yesterday, I think it should be a moment of introspection for us. Because you see, the world we live in today, you will have conflicts. And you will have emergency need to evacuate Nigerians. Where are you going to set up, or have you set up a protocol of meeting touch points to be able to execute an evacuation plan. It is obvious we have not done it. Other cases were unique. In the case of Ukraine, once people could get over the border, they could assemble there, and it was just an airlifting. The case of Sudan is different and convoluted. But it is not in every time or every case we'll have it that easy and straightforward. So, like I said yesterday, we have dropped the ball. Evacuations like that should not only be the preserve of NEMA alone. There should be a multi-party committee set up that should involve top military intelligence chiefs that will be able to give an on-the-spot scenario planning and impact intelligence assessment of the situation. Because if we had done that, for instance, we would not have faced this bottleneck we faced in Cairo. Somebody should have preempted that and informed Mr. President. Somebody should also have looked at the possibility of Port Sudan. Cairo was not the only egress point. There was also the possibility of Djibouti. But if we had these committees, we should have sorted that out. Also, the negotiation with the bus driver and the release of money that led to a case of national embarrassment for our country should not have happened. To the extent that the ambassador had to come out and say, oh, we don't know about anything. It was people that were back here in NEMA that were planning with the bus driver, and they sent less than $400,000. The money was not complete, as against the 40 buses they wanted at the benchmark rate of $30,000 per bus. And there were skirmishes in that matter. That should not have happened. Thirdly, who was the monitoring committee that were supposed to be there at least in each buses, or the officials with the students, to the extent that, as we heard, that the bus drivers had to hold up the ransom and say, bring your passport until they pay us. That should not have happened. What was the coordination done before one of our largest, if not, I think when I check our transport fleet, military transport, it's only the Hercules C-130 that's our largest plane. And we don't have too many Hercules C-130s. I mean, we all remember one that came down in 92, 93, thereabout, at Ejigbo. So we don't have a lot of Hercules C-130s. So what were the plan either to made on ground that before the Hercules was even going to depart, we would have had students on ground that the Hercules was going to carry. Now we have to start paying charges on the Hercules being on ground. Hercules that we don't have too many of. So these are all the factors, but I think my priority now is for those students to come back home safe. And also for us to now make contingent plans to be able to evacuate other Nigerians that are there. Because obviously it's not a safe place. If you see what is happening in Sudan on ground, from the reports we are getting, it is very sad. It has taken a tribal dimension. A lot of people have to now leave Khartoum, go places further down south like Hosi and some other parts of Sudan, because they are pounding heavily. The government forces of Al-Burhan are pounding heavily the rapid forces. And it's a free-for-all. And you also know that there's a crisis there that spills over into Darfur and also spills over into South Sudan. So these are the things I feel we can take learnings from. But my greatest priority now will be those students. At least we should even have the first batch. And please, if we can also set up like a trauma center that can constantly be talking to the families of these people in Nigeria as we speak. Because God only knows what is going through their minds. You don't want to check the blood pressure of parents that have their students already in Sudan. So if there's any succor we can do, set up a center, get a manifest with all their parents' phone number if we can. That's why I say you need a multi-party involvement in this. and at least call them every day and meet with them and calm things down. I rest my case.
All right. Well, I'll just very well said. There's an article, the back page story of this day, and Dr. Bati also highlights some of the issues of Nigerians stranded in Sudan. But let me speak to a case for women in Tinubu's government, as written by Ms. Onikepo Braithwaite of the Advocate column in the Lawyer.
This is the Lawyer.
Yes, this is the Lawyer. I think it's really critical for us to have these conversations. We have talked about it a number of times, and we threw light on this, not just last week, but quite significantly during the International Women's Month in March. But what she cited, the Constitution as amended in Section 42, 1 and A, that the Nigerian Constitution is against any form of discrimination. And I like that in this article, she was able to analyze this particular administration and its seeming discrimination against women. Hence, perhaps we're not too surprised as to the outcome of the elections, because it almost seems as if we've taken many steps backwards in terms of the appointment of women in public offices. The ray of hope in this article is that the president-elect has shown himself to be quite, in terms of appointment of women, quite strong in that instance, having himself appointed or selected a woman as the first female deputy governor of Lagos State. She talked about the Jonathan administration, President Goodluck Jonathan administration, whereby we had 3 key positions headed by women. In this particular administration, the only position headed by a woman in terms of a key position ministerially is Women Affairs and State Ministries. That's not good enough. We've come too far.
Minister of Finance.
Oh, yes, she excluded Minister of Finance. That's very key. Yes, she excluded her. But we've come too far as a nation, especially having signed on to the United Nations SDGs, having a portfolio headed by a woman in that position, to see us move so many steps back in terms of women. So what we want to see going forward in terms of the new administration, now setting an agenda for the president-elect, is equity in the appointment of women, not just in positions, Women Affairs, we like that, it's good, but in other key positions, we have excellent women who have done Nigeria proudly. Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, we have women like Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, who turned 60 a few years ago. By the way, glowing tribute. A few days. I'm adding more, yes, a few days ago. And she had a glowing tribute about her track record in government by her principal at the time, former President Olusegun Obasanjo. So there are many women, and thankfully for the powerful women you talked about, they should look at these women, and maybe the next spokesperson for the president should be a woman.
We had a woman there before.
Who happens to be a Delta wife like yourself?
Anyway, quickly.
Yeah.
You asked about this request by Labour that the incoming government should consider raising the retirement age from 60 to 65
to 40
years. What we have at the moment is that you are required to retire when you are 60 or after 35 years in service. And what the rule says, whichever comes first. Well, the Labour has not articulated its position in terms of the details, but I guess where Labour is coming from is the thinking that, look, by the time people are 60 or they have served 35 years, many within that age bracket still have a lot to offer. And the problem that causes in Nigeria is that you find people reducing their date of birth. They keep swearing to affidavits. They keep adjusting because they don't want to go. Some even insist that they still have a lot to offer, creating problems within the system. Because the younger ones who want to take over within the civil service had already been calculating the date of birth of their boss. But it is the truth, really, that many people, within that age bracket, they still have a lot to offer, maybe an additional 5 years, as Labour is requesting. But it's for Labour to articulate what it is asking for in specific terms, not just in terms of biological age, but in terms of how that can contribute to the system. And there are arguments that can be made from all directions. However, talking about this retirement age is a very big issue in France. Yeah. In fact, workers' unions in France have been fighting since January. because the Macron administration wanted to increase and has now increased retirement age, backed by the Constitutional Court from 64 to 66, I think, right? Just by 2 years, from 64 to 66, the workers' union started rioting. The Marine Le Pen and other politicians waded into the matter, but at the end of the day, the Constitutional Court ruled in favor of the government, even if it rejected certain clauses, and President Macron has signed that into law. So in France, people don't want to work for additional years, not just 2 years.
They want to go and enjoy their retirement.
They say, no, it's better to retire. In the UK has also been working on pension reform. And in the UK now, retirement age has been moved from age of 66 to 67. But that will not take effect until 2026. And the whole idea is that you keep reforming it. But if you look at these two countries, France and the UK, the whole idea about pension reform is tied to pension benefits, is tied to the workforce, is tied to government revenue and the capacity of government to pay pensions. In Nigeria here, what are you going to tie it to? In a country where, nobody pays any pension anyway. There is great unemployment, and nobody is doing anything serious about great unemployment.
No, we pay pension.
Except
that the pensioners have to be on long queues, do verification.
No, but people don't go through that in the UK, and they don't go through that.
But we still pay at long last.
Yeah, well, after people have been on the queue, and some even die on the queue, and some state governments don't even want to worry about, pensioners. But, the big argument here is not just about people staying in office as Methuselahs in the corridors of government offices. It's making sure that you tie these to other issues about work, employment rates, the capacity of the state to pay pension and all of that. But that's for Labour, to articulate it, and for the incoming administration to consider it. So what they are pushing for, well, it's probably not out of place. But the contest is what is important. As for Sudan, well, I have no further comment on that. I've been commenting on it for weeks now. But it is third week. A total of about 12 countries and more have evacuated their people from Sudan. Some of them, as we've pointed out, went there with buses. Americans guided their buses with drones. The French, they sent in a convoy. That convoy was attacked. They quickly rushed back. They shut down their embassy, but they've been able to evacuate their people. Indians have been able to evacuate their people. Do you know the funny news we read yesterday? One of the buses taking Nigerians out of Sudan, they said it caught fire.
Well, that's accidental.
Wait now. They said the bus had problems, right? And that it was because the tire was heated and it caught fire at 2:30 a.m. So some of these stories that we get to hear don't seem to make sense to me. And then in any case, we've been told the Egyptian authorities have now agreed, after President Buhari spoke to the president of Egypt, that, okay, Nigerians can now pass through. After our people have stayed by the border for 5 days. And the C-130 that was sent by the Nigerian Air Force was stranded at the Aswan border, Aswan airport.
And the crew restricted to the airport.
To the aircraft. Well, what is that? Okay, now we've been told that Egypt is giving Nigeria stringent conditions. Read those conditions. Say, look, your people, the Nigerians, when they come, they just go straight to the aircraft. They must not move this way. They must not move that way. They must be guided. Now, who did that to the other countries? So this is the kind of insult that Nigeria gets, even from African countries, with all that this country has done on this continent. Egypt, as I said, is a member of the African Union. Nigeria is a member of the African Union. So why is it that we will be treated so shabbily? Look, some people may say, well, you know your people. You know, the Egyptians don't want a situation whereby they will escape into Egypt. You know, but we cannot push that kind of argument. This is a crisis situation, a humanitarian situation.
But did we engage Egyptians at the highest level early enough? That's the question we must also ask
This
and
is
answer.
the third week, and the crisis is continuing. Bodies are littering the streets of Khartoum, and at the end of the day, we want to know the number of people that the Nigerian authorities are able to bring back, because we're told that the actual population of Nigerians in that place runs into millions. If by the third week we've not done anything, our only hope is for the international community to broker a peace agreement between the warring parties. Otherwise, we will be caught right in the middle of a civil war. If any, don't go to Sudan.
If we've not been caught in the middle of a civil war already, I mean, if we still have the time, there's this story that I don't want to push away. Salary payment will be difficult from June.
Yes, I think it was
Obaseki that said that. You see, Obaseki is not just speaking as a governor.
Obaseki, the governor
He's speaking from an antecedent of somebody that knows the financial system. Is a financial.
In fact, his quote here: "The economy of our country is in a terrible state. It will be a miracle for federal and state governments to pay salaries beyond June this year without resorting to massively printing money or removing fuel subsidy.
Yes.
Either of these decisions will bring more hardships and pains to us as a people, particularly you, the workers."
You see, the last time
off the table.
this last time he said something like this, a lot of people kicked against him. You know, he particularly said we're printing money. But the truth is, we are seeing the knock-on effects on inflation numbers. And it's quite very dicey, and that's why I was taken aback when we backtracked on this subsidy. The fact that NNPC has not been remitting money to FARC. We are living based on the industry of FIRS as we speak today. And kudos to them. And that's why when you look at FARC fortunes, it's been dwindling. The states are struggling to scrape by. And we all know that most of these are states are not viable, which is another conversation for another day. And that's why some people push for, devolution of powers. So that if states can control their resources, they will not go cap in hand begging at the central level. And we've had this consistently for a while. And he's just reiterating this. Because that same extension, who is going to pay for that over 3 trillion in subsidy? It will still come from NNPC taking that money and not remitting that money that ought to have been used for the states. So in over 50 years, we've gone around the same cycle, because when we talk about the subsidy debate started in 73 after Yom Kippur War to be able to account for the shortfall in crude oil prices. So for over 50 years, we have not been able to solve one problem. And it's been a recurring decimal. I keep talking about a This Week paper magazine I picked up that bore the date 86, 87. And the talk then was, we'll remove subsidy before the end of the year. And we've been going around in circles. And now we want to kick the can down the road again. But Mr. Obaseki has told us the truth. And you will see the effect, if the effect is not happening already.
Well, we have to go. Thank you very much, Emmanuel
By
Efeni.
June, we'll have a new government in place.
Okay.
So